Hey, Elise Pickett here with the Urban Harvest, and we are going to do take number 2 for planting blueberries in your Florida garden. We had no sound last time, sorry about that, but we should be good to go now. Today I'm going to go over planting blueberries and the soil amendments that they need to really thrive here. But first I wanted to go over some blueberry planting basics. So blueberries come from a couple of different varieties. There's low bush and high bush varieties. You can see a low bush behind me here. And most of what's cultivated for production and for home or commercial use is the high bush blueberry. There's probably 10 or 15 different kinds of blueberry varieties that really thrive here in Florida. And it is a good idea to mix up your varieties. That's definitely key when planting blueberries. You don't want all one type of blueberry. So if you are planting, let's say, 4 different blueberry bushes, you have room for 4 in your garden. It wouldn't be a bad idea to have 4 different kinds, or at least 2 or 3 different kinds out of your 4 bushes. It's going to increase the overall productivity of your plants. The other really important factor for blueberry success is the soil pH. Now they are quite particular about the soil acidity, and they like it much more acidic than most plants do, especially plants in your vegetable garden and most ornamentals that you would plant in landscape. Blueberries prefer a pH of around 4.5 to 5.5. Just for a frame of reference, most garden vegetables prefer a pH of around 6.8 to 7.2. So we're talking about significantly more acidic than your standard plants in the garden. Okay, so now we have some company. Here's our audience for our blueberry video. But getting back to things, if you were to picture, say, a potted plant that you purchased from a nursery, and sometimes when you pull them out, they're super root bound. All of the roots are exposed, there's tons of roots, and the plant's not really thriving. There's a physical barrier creating that situation. Blueberries are so particular about soil acidity that they can actually become root bound in the hole that they're planted into in the ground based on soil acidity and not a physical barrier. So it's really important to properly prepare the soil for your blueberries if you really want them to thrive. There are 4 soil amendments that I recommend adding into your blueberry holes if you're going to be planting them in the ground or even in the pot, but today we are going to be planting them into the ground. And one of those soil amendments is actually pine bark. Now, pine bark is much more acidic than most of your other mulches, so I would recommend pine and not just a generic mulch. It helps to lower the soil acidity, which of course is key for blueberries. It also helps aerate the roots and provide some structure. The other soil amendment that I add into the mix is peat moss. Now, I am not a big fan of peat moss at all. It's not a very sustainable resource, but the soil acidity of peat moss is much lower than that of the sustainable alternative of coconut coir. We're talking about a pH of around 3.8 to 4.5 for peat moss, whereas coconut coir is almost neutral, sitting around 6 to 7. So in this case, for this specific use, I would recommend using a peat moss, and not just any peat moss. The one that is super acidic is a Canadian sphagnum peat moss. The third soil amendment I would recommend is coffee grounds. Now, a lot of people think coffee grounds create a more acidic environment, and that is true for the unused grounds, coffee before it's cooked. That will lower the pH of the soil. Once it goes through that drip process though, a lot of the acidity is now in your coffee cup and no longer in the grounds. But with that being said, it is still more acidic than some of your other nitrogen sources like bone meal or something along those lines. So I do still like to use coffee grounds as my nitrogen source for blueberries, just because it is a little bit more acidic than some of the other options out there. The last soil amendment that I like to use is a Espoma organic soil acidifier. Now we do have a lot of acidic ingredients going into our soil amendments, but it's easier to set things up right in the first place than fix it down the line. So although we do have quite a few acidic ingredients already going in, I do add this in as well. When you're planting your blueberry bushes, you can put in a cup per plant mixed into the other soil amendments, and it further decreases the soil acidity to really give them a strong start. Instead of just adding in these ingredients by themselves, I do like to mix in a little bit of the native soil. So I always hold back some of the soil that I've dug out of the holes for me to mix in with the other soil amendments around the blueberry plant itself. The links to all of these products are down below in the show notes. You want the hole to be at least twice the width and depth of the pot, just to make sure that it doesn't have that root bound effect. As you're adding your soil amendments, we're going to want to do 2 parts pine bark, 1 part coffee ground, 1 part peat, and mix in 1 cup of soil acidifier per planting hole. The rest will be your native soil mixed in and incorporated with all of your soil amendments. When you're planting the blueberries, you're only going to want them planted to the depth of the container. And I do like to leave a little bit of a shallow indentation around the mulch line. So it'll be kind of sunken just a little bit around the mulch line, not the soil line. And that just helps to trap a little bit extra moisture. Make sure to cover the soil around your new plants with some sort of mulch. I recommend using pine straw. As the pine mulch or the pine straw breaks down, it's further decreasing the acidity of your soil. That's pretty much all there is to it. If you get them set up right in the beginning, it's not too difficult to maintain. They need consistent watering, at least 1 inch per week. And once the plants are established, fertilizer before the fruiting season, so around January or February, can go a long way for them. I'd like to pose the question of what a modern homestead looks like. To some, it may mean turning your entire urban city lot into a permaculture food forest, but for others, a modern homestead may simply be putting in enough blueberry bushes for your for your family to have enough blueberries for the year. They freeze really easily, and they're a wonderful addition to even front yards like I am here. They provide a nice pretty shrub year-round in addition to the edible fruit that it produces seasonally. Just something to think about. If you'd like to learn more about perennial vegetables and fruits to incorporate into your landscape here in your Florida garden, I'd love a little bit of feedback and see if that's something you all are interested in learning more about. And if you found this video helpful, make sure to head on down below and hit the subscribe button so you're alerted every time a new video comes out on Florida-based vegetable gardening. Happy gardening!